Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's EnRoute webinar. My name's Bennett. I'll be the moderator for today. Our presenter is Aaron Clapp, the application specialist at SAI. He knows just about everything there is to know about EnRoute, and today he'll be showing us the reworked Polygon tool in EnRoute 7. After the presentation, we will be able to answer any questions you have either about this tool or any other EnRoute topics, so feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. We are recording the webinar as always, so if you want to review anything Aaron discusses, we'll be sending it with you all, sending you the link this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. And with that, we're ready to get started, so I'll turn it over to Aaron.
All right. So the new Polygon tool has been one of those tools that we've wanted to make better and improve, make it a little more user-friendly, and add some functionality to it. And so to find that, we're going to go up here to our drawing tools and click on the Polygon tool. So one of the things you'll notice that's a little bit different is we've simplified the way that you place it on screen. So it's no longer kind of like a multi-click type of setup where you have to click several times to get it to stick on screen. Then you can make changes and then you hit apply. At this point, any settings that you have, we can just simply click on screen and it places it right there. So a little bit simpler to use in that regard, kind of eliminating some of the extra monotonous clicking and right clicking to get it to do different things. So we feel like this is a kind of a big improvement to make things a little bit simpler for you. Now things do follow your cursor now. So that's kind of one of the other changes here is it follows your cursor. And if you want to change anything, we just can simply make any changes that we want to, and do that here. Now, if we want it to stay in the middle of the screen, or we want it to stick to a certain location, we can just go ahead and set the center X and Y. So I can put this at 15, 15, and now it's going to stick there even if I put my mouse up here. And so even if I've got my mouse moving around, it's going to stay in its current location. And then I can make any changes that I want and kind of see the preview up in that fixed location. Again, once you go into the Polygon tool, you've noticed that we have kind of drastically changed the amount or the kind of the cluttered up settings that were in here, kind of made it a little more simple. There was a ton of settings in here that were kind of complicated to try and figure out and use. And so we've simplified it to some basic settings that you might want to use in each one of these. We've also added just a few standard options to kind of get you started. So for example, we've got the 5-pointed star, and we've got other polygons here. So we've just added a few in here to kind of get you to where you want to be a little bit quicker. And then you can just go from here and make the adjustments that you want to in terms of the different settings here. So that makes it a little bit easier. Again, we've also simplified the design scape a little bit here. So you've got your 2 buttons here for your stars, and then you also got your options for your polygons, things like that. And so you can kind of set those here. You've got your radius settings that we've set up here. Again, you've got your center. And then in this particular case, if we just hit apply, it goes back to placing it on screen. So this is a much more simple tool in terms of ease of use, kind of just making it a lot easier for you to kind of work with it without having to worry about right clicking and left clicking so many times and attaching it to your cursor and all this kind of stuff. The other thing that we've also added to this particular tool, and let's clear up our screen a little bit here, is the ability to create a mesh with this particular graphic. So if we go back here, I'm going to set this to our 5-pointed star, and I'm going to click the mesh option. So this option just gives us a 2D geometry that we can toolpath, that we can do whatever we want to later. We can edit, point edit, we can do all kinds of different things. But the point here is we've got a 2D geometry, or we can now create a mesh with this. So when we click on the mesh, now we get the options down here for height and return height. So if you're familiar with anything in regards to 3D, these settings will be familiar. So return height is going to be how much extras it adds to the bottom. So just like a raised up level of material. And then height is going to be the overall height of the star. So let's just put this at 1.5 inches. And we'll just apply one on screen here. And you'll notice that it looks a little bit different than before. So in here, we can see that it's got these extra lines in here. And if we go to our rendered view, so if you have the Pro version or the subscription complete, you'll be able to look at the 3D. Now we've got a perfect star. And if we look at that from the perspective or from one of the side views, we can see here that we've got a nice perfect star that we can then apply to a relief or something like that, and then toolpath this. One of the improvements in this particular tool over the previous tool was that we couldn't create the mesh, but even if you did want to create the 5-pointed star, and then you use like the sweep to rails tool or the primitive objects tool to create the star, it would always create some kind of a weird mathematical problem here where the angles would come up and then kind of jut up in a strange way. So we've made this a much better improvement. So it creates the star in a much more realistic or ideal situation. So it puts it more like what you'd expect when you create a star like this. So giving us this ability to create these 3D objects is really great as well. Again, this works for all of the different tools. Now, if you want to add a return height, maybe we add an additional 0.5 inches to that. And let's just apply. So now you can see in the perspective view here, we've got a 1/2 inch of height before we've added the star logo or the star relief to it. Now, the great thing is here is that this is really easy to get into our 3D. So all we need to do with these objects is, because they're placed at the top of the plate, just like this, all we have to do with these objects is we'll draw a rectangle here, just for a quick example. We'll go to surfaces, we'll create a relief. We'll just add a flat, no thickness relief. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my relief and those 3D objects. And I'm going to apply mesh to relief. I'm going to say add, faceted, and apply. Okay, we'll move this relief out of the way. And now I have got 2 different shapes here that are ready to go in terms of toolpathing. So I can toolpath either one of these objects, and I'm ready to go really quick, really easily. It gets you into that ballpark really fast. So it makes that really easy. Again, let's go ahead and just take a look at some of the other shapes here and options. Again, we can use our standard points if we want to, or this also works with the Polygon tool here. So let's set this down to 0. Again, it creates those symmetrical shapes that are easily that can easily be put into your 3D designs, or you can use these as a base for something else. Or if at this point you wanted to export these, you can always export these as a 3D object. So for example, we could send these out as a DXF mesh or an STL file, if we want to, or an OBJ file. STL and OBJ would be your more common ones, but then they could be exported to something else. So this is kind of a rework of this tool. Again, the focus here was to really try and make the tool a little bit easier to use, a little bit faster, and not quite so tedious in terms of the clicking and the right clicking and all that kind of stuff that was involved with the tool before. Again, it's also much quicker and a little bit faster in terms of just the way that the software processes this tool and how it moves along throughout the software. So it's a little bit quicker there. And then also kind of just cleaning up the settings a little bit here, removing some of the numbers and the XY coordinates that were kind of completely unnecessary and things like that from a standpoint of how that goes, and making things a little bit simpler. Again, we can do different things like changing the radius, the outer radius or the inner radius to affect this. So a lot of the same settings you had before, just a little more simple package, a little bit faster, so it's a little more efficient, and removing some of those extraneous clicks that kind of made this tool a little bit frustrating to use back in the EnRoute 6 days. So we think with this new tool, we've reworked it a little bit, make it easier to use and simpler to get kind of the results that you're just looking for. The whole idea for this tool is to be a quick and easy tool to use to create some simple basic shapes and not have to sit there fiddling around with settings and cluttered UI. And this kind of gets us to that point. So that's the new reworked Polygon tool. Hopefully you guys use it. Hopefully you appreciate the new 3D options for those of you who do 3D stuff. It makes it really easy for creating those stars, where this was kind of a complicated thing to do in the past. If you wanted to create a star that was pointing up symmetrically to the middle, that was actually something where you had to use sweep to rails, and it was kind of a complicated ordeal. And so this makes that prospect a snap, super fast, versus spending 10 to 15 minutes on sweep to rails trying to get it just right. So this makes that improvement much, much better. So are there any questions on this or regarding any of the other new tools that that we have in EnRoute 7?
Thanks, Aaron. That was a pretty good explanation for a great reworked tool. While we wait for some questions to come in, I'll let you guys know that our next webinar will be on September 14th, and Aaron will be discussing the new and improved features of automatic toolpathing in EnRoute 7. So be sure to sign up for that one. It looks like we got a question from Brendan. Are you able to rotate the new mesh objects before making a relief?
Yes, you can. Now, in one of the aspects of the old tool was that rotation was kind of part of the kind of the tedious clicking and right clicking that you had to do. There was these options where you could have the mouse and click on it once and then rotate it kind of, and then you had to click again to hit it, and then you had to hit apply. So a lot of that's been removed so that if you're ready to do something or you're ready to rotate this, you can just go into your F2 Precision Input Center, and you can use the rotate by using these options here, or you could go to, and I could just click on it here like that and rotate it. So I can do it by hand, or I can do it with the Precision Input Center, or if you want to use the rotate here, using this option here, and you want to rotate it by a very specific way, you can do that in here as well, using the snaps or something like that. So that's also available. So you do that, you rotate it, put it in your position, and then you can put it into a relief that way.
A follow-up question on that. Can you do it from the side views as well, or is it only from the top view?
This would be only from the top view. The side views don't really allow you to edit a whole lot. You can move things around in the perspective view. Let's see here. I know that we've made some changes in here, so I don't think we can rotate. Oh, yeah, we can. Okay, so it's not gonna. There are some options that are going to be available in the perspective that weren't there before. In fact, that's actually something new to the perspective option, is that you can kind of click and move things around a little bit, whereas where you couldn't before. But the side views, you can still move things around, but the side views don't allow you to rotate at all. So something that's added to this perspective view, but not to the side views.
Are there any other questions before we close it out for today? Oh, looks like one just came in from Adam. When my software writes the toolpath to file, it puts an M5 command at the end. Where can I turn that option off so that the tool doesn't return home at the end of the file?
Well, that's actually a good question. So that would be a driver edit. So that M5 is there permanently. Now, Adam, do you mind telling me what driver you're using in EnRoute, just so I have a quick reference? But while you're doing that, um, most drivers are set kind of in stone for the most part. So whatever the driver outputs, there's not really a way to edit the code. There are one or two drivers that have some customizability to them, but it's a little more rare on the rare side. I think there's only two drivers that allow you to do that. It is something that we can handle. So if it isn't one of those several drivers that does have the editability to it, then what we would do, um, we would need to probably go in and do a driver edit for that particular, and then edit that in. So that would be something we'd have you contact support for. I think there is a driver request form on our website, thinksai.com. Under the EnRoute support section, there is a section there where you can submit a driver request. So that would just be something that we would just do. We could just remove that for you. So it doesn't look like the driver that you've mentioned is one of the ones that is editable. And so the ones that are editable are specifically the WinCNC drivers. They have a little file that allows them to be controlled a little bit differently. Yeah, I would submit a driver request and then go that way, and then we could have that removed from the driver in that particular case.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have for today, so we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you all for joining us for today's EnRoute webinar. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter so you won't miss any webinars or announcements. Be sure to join us on September 14th for our next EnRoute webinar. Thank you again for attending. We hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.